the design world is very tightly in cahoots. Not knowingly. I'm not playing any conspiracy theory here. Far be it from me. I don't think there was a single artist or designer who thought, fine, let me ride the coattails of the Lehman Brothers. But if we today look at the relationship with the creative economy and the financialized economy, these things are interesting if you actually want to have a critique about what the creative economy means, why it grew in the way it grew, and where it is going in the future. You could do these examples again and again and again and again, of course, the boutiquing of everything. Boutique hotels, another kind of little secret vice of mine, would be the boom in the hotel market, the boom in design hotels, the notion of small, elegant, specialized, creative hotels or creative spaces would have been unthinkable if we would have the depth possibilities, the depth arrangements of, let's say, 20 years back or 25 years back. The boom in building creative spaces at all in the great cities of our world was partially built on the notion of cheap money. So, today, I believe that one of the first issues we want to talk about creativity in the crisis is not necessarily how can creativity get us out of the crisis, but how did creativity get us into one? Not because I want to reassign blame, this is not a question of playing the blame game, but because I believe that for a true discussion of creativity and crisis, we cannot let it stay at, okay, we're the good guys, the creative people are the good people who will kind of build us out of this. But actually take some responsibility for what was done. Not responsibility in stepping up and saying we're to blame, but rather responsibility in the sense that we all were part of this. It is very simple to scapegoat the fat cats, the investment bankers, the CEOs. Those are the obvious scapegoats, the obvious people we can point at and where we can pick up the grossest excesses. We weren't complaining that much when there was lots of money to be had. We weren't complaining that much when artists finally were seen as valuable inputs. We weren't complaining that much when we're all riding the wave. So in a sense, today when we have this discussion, we need to talk about, okay, what is the responsibility of the creative person? Is it merely to enact the creative impulse, or is it to ask questions about the world in which this creativity takes place and the patterns of this creativity? So I believe that the talk of creativity and crisis needs in part to start from this notion of responsibility and go in to kind of discussion. We need to see creativity take other paths. I do not believe that the creative economy as it boomed during the last 5 years can continue on the same path. This is not a blip. This is not a question that a little money ran out of the system. The creative economy grew in the way it grew because the economy grew in the way it grew, and we know that that growth was not sustainable and will not be coming back. We may save a couple of banks, we may save a couple of companies, the economy will turn, but the deeply financialized, cheap debt economy, particularly as it was seen in the States, will not come back. It can't come back. We can't have the system we had. Nina and I were just in London. I've looked at some of the figures of debt in England. An average person in England, the median person in England of my age, in order to pay back all the debt they're carrying, they need to go for 14 months and not consume anything. Not pay taxes either. If I was a median person in England, if I could live 14 months tax-free and spending not a single cent, literally hunting for rats and not paying any form of rent, that would rid me of my debt. Never seen those levels of debt, ever.
Is that including mortgage or only consumption debt?
Sorry,
Including mortgages or only
that's
consumption debt?
that's including total debt, but that's
Total
medium.
debt.
That's total debt. But the level that is at,
What's the median income?
that I can't remember. Sorry.
You need to know that to work that out, though, don't you?
I nicked this completely from The Economist,
Right.
so I mean, I assume their calculations were correct. You can see these calculations are going on all over the place. In the sense, we do know that average debt rates in the Western economy has never been higher than they are now. There's never been a higher debt rate, not debt, not death, in the economy as we have it now. We know that the economy was driven by cheap debt. And I mean, and that's not coming back. The cheap finance is not coming back. So we need to kind of answer what now? What is the challenge of the creative economy in the economy to come? And I think a lot of it has to do with reevaluating creativity, reevaluating what creativity does. This has nothing to do with Bonnier's book, The Art Crisis. It's just that I like the image. I think it's a really pretty image. Re-evaluating what it is the creative economy will do. I mean, a lot of what's written on the creative economy kind of just assumed if you build it, they will come. If you paint it, that somebody out there will buy it. If you create the spaces, somebody will fill them. A lot of the kind of discussion of the creative economy assumed implicitly, but still, a very, very active consumer base. A very, very happy consumer base who would gladly kind of up their luxury purchases, go for better design, furnish their houses with art pieces. But I mean, what if? Now I can't, of course, I don't know nothing about the future because nobody does. But just let's postulate, assuming that consumers will not be as happy to indulge the creative urge, happy to indulge in the products of the creative economy. Where does it leave us? What is actually the task we are set in such a different kind of economy? For instance, what if the creative economy was not about indulging neophilia? Neophilia, the love of the new, is of course one thing that we very tightly connect to creativity. Most definitions about creativity have the word new in them somewhere. And we are almost programmed into assuming that creativity is about the new. But what if we are moving towards a society that can no longer indulge in neophilia in the same way? Which actually has to revisit notions of retro, tradition, reuse, history, and so on. What kind of changes will that impart on the creative economy? I look a lot at craft these days. Craft is really, really fun. Because craft was, the movement in craft was interesting because it was really neglected in the theorizing of the creative economy. The theorizing of the creative economy built largely on a theorization of the art economy. The fine arts, the performing arts, with some doors open to the design world. Craft is of course a very different kind of creativity, a very different kind of creation. If you look today though, the fastest growing online e-commerce platform is Etsy, which sells only handicrafts. You have a booming interest in knitting. Stitch and Bitch is becoming a mainstream phenomenon. You are seeing a distinct new interest in do-it-yourself movements. In the US, maker fairs, that is fairs of people who are deeply into the do-it-yourself ethos, the reuse ethos, the hacking ethos and rebuilding ethos, are actually some of the most interesting kind of developing trends.